Fraser Economic Freedom Index is basically a measure of how much people are in charge of their own economic decisions. Economic freedom is in many ways similar to political freedom. With political freedom, you don't have government making your political choices. With civil freedom, you don't have government making your choice of religion or association. With economic freedom, you don't have government or powerful interests making economic decisions for you. And in many ways, economic freedom is the most important one because most of your time is spent either earning a living or looking after yourself. When the Economic Freedom Index of the World Index was being devised in the mid-1980s, there was a lively debate amongst the scholars who devised it. There was a team of about 60 top academics in any number of fields, from history to sociology to, of course, economics, along with 3 Nobel laureates. One of the questions they faced was economic freedom is an intrinsic good. In other words, you should have the right to your freedom to make economic decisions. The second question was a practical one. Does economic freedom produce good results? Does it create prosperity? Does it create better health outcomes, for instance, if people are able to look after themselves? More than 600 research articles have investigated such things and found any number of positive outcomes associated with economic freedom. Of course, the key question is how we measure economic freedom. We use 42 variables which describe in some detail an economy, put into 5 areas. Size of government. If government taxes too much of your money away, taxes too much of your property away, it reduces your economic freedom. Rule of law and property rights. This is the essential infrastructure of economic freedom. Without a strong rule of law that protects the economic rights and the property of everyone, including the poorest and the weakest members of society, then economic freedom is limited. Of all the areas of economic freedom, rule of law is the most important. Sound money. Government can take your property by inflating and destroying the value of your money every bit as easily as they can take your property through taxation. Freedom to trade, an absolutely essential area for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is not that much smaller than my home nation of Canada. Sri Lanka is about 22 million people. Canada is about 35 million people. We've become prosperous not from one Canadian selling to another Canadian, though that's part of the picture, but we've become prosperous selling to the world. The only way for Sri Lanka to become prosperous is to sell to the world. Freedom to trade. You should have the freedom to sell to anyone on the planet and buy from anyone on the planet. And finally, regulation of credit. You should be able to lend to whom you wish, borrow from whom you wish. Business. You should be able to start a business when you wish, close it when you wish. Labor. You should be able to hire whom you wish, and you should be able to work for whom you wish. It is very, very important to note that all of this data we take from third-party sources. In other words, we create none of the data ourselves. The reason that's important is so that our subjective judgments do not influence the outcome of the index, but instead the index is based on, as I mentioned, third-party measures that we don't influence. What that also means is the Economic Freedom of the World Index is replicable by anyone who has a computer and thus access to that data. So you can see how it's put together, you can understand the nuts and bolts, it's fully transparent and therefore as objective as it possibly can be.